What if anyone could win consistently at live poker? No secrets, just proven concepts. After 11 years at the live tables around the world and coaching dozens of players, I found 5 unbeatable principles that changed everything for me. So in this video, I'm going to show you these actionable steps, making it easy and achievable for you to finally start winning consistently at 1-2 or 1-3, no matter your skill level. The first concept is simple, but it took me years to actually ask the right question, and I guarantee if you don't follow this advice, you will never have a significant win rate at the low stakes or at any stakes really. So let me show you what not to do. Say you open ace-10 offsuit from the hijack for $12 over a limper in a 1-2 game. Big blind calls, limper calls. The flop is ace-6 deuce with a flush draw. You bet for value, the big blind calls, the limper folds. The turn is an offsuit 7. Now betting is getting thinner than on the flop, but villain can still call with weaker aces, a flush draw, or maybe even a 6. So let's say you bet again for around 2/3 pot and you get called again. So far so standard, but what separates the break-even players from the winners is the river play, because the river is a 9 bringing in the flush. Your opponent checks. What's your play here? Do you go for thin value or do you check behind? Against the worst player in the world, a bet here might be just about okay. But against everyone else, you're making a big mistake. Why? Not because you're always beat, you'll have the best hand sometimes, but if you do, will you ever get called by worse? If villain has an ace, will he really call a triple barrel on a board where the flush just hit? And besides, you don't even beat ace-deuce, ace-6, ace-7 or ace-8 because these are all 2 pair now. And you definitely don't beat a flush. So what's the big lesson? Always bet with a purpose. And there are only 3 reasons for betting in poker. 1, to get a weaker hand to call. 2, to get a better hand to fold. And 3, to deny equity. If we look back at our example, we can't get a weaker hand to call, we can't really get a better hand to fold, and denying equity is not needed on the river. So next time when you're not sure whether to bet or check with a value hand, ask those 3 questions. If the answer is no to all of them, don't bet. Betting in the wrong spots is only one bankroll killer, but there are several more. And most of them get compounded on later streets because the mistake is made pre-flop. A lot of these can be avoided with an easy checklist system though. When children learn how to bowl, they often play with something called guardrails. These are the bumpers that are raised from the sides of the lane to prevent the bowling ball from going into the gutter. This makes the game a lot more fun because small mistakes or inaccuracies don't get punished like they would without the guardrails. In poker, you can also use such guardrails. I don't mean that you start building bumpers around your seat at the table, but you can wrap some guardrails around your strategy. And that's exactly what a pre-flop checklist system does in poker. It acts as your personal guardrail, a set of simple rules that catch you whenever you're unsure so you don't bleed chips in spots you don't fully understand. Here's my personal poker guardrail system. Anytime you're unsure, just run through this mental checklist. 1. Is this hand even in my opening range? You don't have to memorize opening charts, but you should know roughly what kind of hands to open in what position. If the hand you're holding is not in that range or very close to it, just fold. 2. If it seems likely that the pot goes multi-way, do I have a multi-way hand? You don't want to be caught in a multi-way pot with a hand that plays poorly multi-way, like say ace-10 offsuit or king-jack offsuit. If there's a raise and a couple of calls, you only want to call behind with true multi-way hands. What are these? Small pocket pairs and suited aces. Basically hands that draw to the nuts. And 3, follow a strict calling pattern in the big blind. If the hand goes multi-way, just fold your hands that are not multi-way hands. If someone raised to 7 big blinds, you basically don't call anything. Always be price sensitive and alert. It's no shame in folding a marginal hand to a big raise when you're in the big blind. This next principle is one I only really learned quite recently, but visualizing this can help to get rid of up to 50% of your mistakes. I realized the power of this concept when a student asked me to analyze why he was not beating the live low stakes. As I usually do in my coachings, I asked him to show me a few hands that he played and confused him. This eager student brought several of these hands into the session. In the first one, he called a big river bet with second pair because he thought the old man in C2 was bluffing for all his chips. Then he called in the big blind with Jack-6 suited after 3 other players had called an early position raise. And eventually he bet half pot as a bluff on the river against a guy who hadn't folded a hand all night. When I heard these hands, I thought to myself, if I wanted to design a strategy for bankruptcy at 1-2, this would be it. So how do you turn this around? Here's the mental hack that will flip your game upside down. It's what psychologists call inversion thinking. Instead of asking, how do I win? You ask, how do I guarantee I lose? And the answers come quickly. If losing players limp into pots, you know you should raise or fold. If they call weak hands in bad positions, you know you shouldn't. If they bluff the guy who never folds, you know you should absolutely not do that. In fact, one of the fastest ways to build a winning strategy at 1-2 is to spend a night watching the losers, writing down their habits, and then building the opposite habits for yourself. So next time you're at the table, pick one player who's clearly losing. Write down 3 things they do consistently. And then ask, what's the opposite of that? That becomes your correction framework. Inversion thinking helps you stop copying losing players. But the real danger isn't just copying, it's storytelling. And that's where most players torch money. They create fancy narratives at the table that cost them dearly. Like I did a while ago when I played in a new card room. I sat down and in the first hand I opened Ace-4 suited in middle position. A guy directly to my left 3-bet me. I felt attacked. The fight or flight mechanism kicked in. And I can tell you I didn't run. So what did I do? I fought. And oh boy did I fight. I 4-bet shoved on him because, well, I didn't want to get bullied in my first hand. He snap called, turned over pocket aces and scooped a big pot. And I felt like an idiot. This is of course an extreme and costly example, but this happens all the time in poker. And it was definitely not the only time I talked myself into a call or a jam because I thought my opponent was either bullying me or just clicking buttons. And yes, sometimes your opponents will mess with you, but the vast majority of the time they're not out there to get you. They play their cards and don't even notice you. That's why it's so crucial to avoid the trap of fancy narratives. Instead, just think logically what a certain action means and what hands they would do that with. Most of the time you will realize that an unknown recreational player usually has a big hand when he 3-bets. This will prevent you from losing big pots. Which brings us to the next principle. This one might sound obvious to you, but I am almost certain that you still don't follow it because hardly anyone does. And this makes them miserable most of the time when they play poker. So let me show you a quick example of what I mean. This is your poker career. And this is where you would like your poker career to be. But how do you get from this to this? Well, you'd probably go to the gym and work out, right? And after 2 hours in the gym, would you go home, check your belly, and then be really disappointed because you don't have a six-pack yet? Sounds pretty silly because you know that you won't get a six-pack simply from working out once. But poker players do that all the time. They play for a few hours and then they get disappointed because they lost money in that session. They start doubting whether they are even profitable and they feel miserable. And here's the problem with this. Poker variance punishes short-term thinkers. If you want to be a profitable poker player, you need to focus on making the best possible decisions in every situation rather than trying to spin it up with luck. So don't ever obsess over a losing session, not even about 5 losing sessions in a row. Instead, keep track of wins and losses and log the hours played, either in an app like Bankroll Tracker or the old-fashioned way in a spreadsheet. And try to shift your mindset away from winning or losing. Instead, concentrate on the hours played. Celebrate when you hit 100 hours. You'll be amazed at how much more confident and less stressed you feel because you're finally measuring what really matters. And then you'll see that the results will follow. But only if you are truly a winning player. The single most important skill to become a crusher is to be able to exploit every player at your table, from the loose passive player to the old man coffee and even the pro. So watch this video next, where I will show you exactly how to do that.